Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Domi. I'm president of the Post-Conflict Research Center based in Sarajevo, Bosnia. Today, we're joined with our colleagues from the Memorial Center Srebrenica-Potočari. The PCRC is led by President Velma Sadic, and the Potočari Memorial Center is led by Dr. Emir Sulagic, who's also a Srebrenica genocide survivor. Today, in this hour, we're going to remember the past to rethink the future. This year, on July 11th, marks the 25th anniversary of the worst massacre and crime of genocide since the conclusion of World War II. On that fateful day of July 11th, 1995, more than 8,000 Muslim boys and men were murdered. Their mothers and sisters and some of their smaller brothers were separated and ethnically cleansed from Srebrenica. The lesson from Srebrenica is that no society is invulnerable to prejudice and intolerance. It was telegraphed that this might happen, and very little was done to stop it. Indeed, some of the international actors enabled this ethnic cleansing and genocide to take place. Having in mind that this year is indeed the 25th anniversary of the genocide in Srebrenica, we must all continue to remain vigilant against these forces of hate and take positive action to build stronger, more resilient communities. So we thank the campaign today, Together We Remember, on this fateful year and the anniversary. I want to say a few words about the Post-Conflict Research Center that has taken the leadership role in the region as an NGO that is dedicated to restoring a culture of peace and preventing violent conflict in the Western Balkans. And we do that by creating and implementing unconventional and innovative approaches to peace education, post-conflict research, human rights, and transitional justice. Since 2011, PCRC has been working in partnership with the United Nations Office on Genocide Prevention to train and support local organizations in monitoring intergroup violence and mass atrocities. In this 2017 year, PCRC created a Western Balkans coalition of NGOs that were addressing mass atrocity crimes and preventing genocide. Additionally, one of the things that PCRC is well known for is its video films and also art exhibits that talk about and address minorities in communities that may be at risk. As a matter of fact, today we will watch one episode of PCRC's award-winning documentary series called Ordinary Heroes that tells the story of Bosnian rescuer Zoran Mandelbaum, a Jewish man who was the leader of the Jewish community in the city of Mostar, who had the choice to leave during the Bosnian War. But because of the legacy of the Holocaust, he was motivated to stay and initiate not only peacemaking, but he also intervened with humanitarian efforts between the warring parties to help those who were trapped, particularly in eastern Mostar, and he actually visited concentration camps. It is estimated during his time in the war, he actually contributed more than 106,000 kilograms of humanitarian aid to eastern Mostar. After the screening, we will hear more about the legacy of the Holocaust and genocide in Bosnia from my colleagues, Dr. Hikmet Karsic, who's a PhD scholar at the University of Hasan Hasanovic, who is the curator at the Memorial Center, who is also a Srebrenica genocide survivor. And we will also end our program with a reading of the names of the victims from Srebrenica by radio reporter Yasmina Jakoli. We will now watch a short film of about 11 and a half minutes.
The war in the Balkans turned one-time neighbours and friends into enemies. We bring you the story of an ordinary man's courage, crossing racial barriers and armed lines to save lives and help reconciliation.
Dolaskom Austro-Ugarske u Bosnu i Hercegovinu 1878. godine u Bosnu i Hercegovini je došao veliki broj Jevreja iz Austro-Ugarske carevine. Moj pradjed Josef Mandelbaum došao je u Foču. Nakon toga 1905. godine došli su u Mostar. Ja i brat smo rođeni, ja sam rođen 46. brat 48. Majka je Sarajka Fincijeva, čija je kompletna familija ubijena u Holokaustu. Kao predsjednik jevrejske opštine nisam znao uopšte šta se dešava, nisam očekivao, nisam znao šta će da bude sa Jevrejima. U 1992. godine nas je dočekala u Mostaru sviju nespremne. Dođi tete svoj. Ljubi ga dedo. Jednostavno, prvo je rat počeo u Hrvatskoj, tako, u Hrvatskoj je bio građanski rat, između onoga trenutka kad je Hrvatska donijela novi ustav po kome je rečeno ovo je zemlja katolika, odnosno Hrvata i ostali koji nisu katolici, tako, da je samo zemlja katolika, a ne pravoslavaca, muslimana i ostalih. Imate glas srpski?
Nema.
Tad je bilo se govorilo da će da bude Bosna i Hercegovina, ovaj dio gdje Hrvati dominiraju, dio Hrvatske. I onda je to počeo progon muslimana ovdje u Mostaru.
Živjela sam 1993. godine na istočnoj strani. To je lijeva obala Neretve. Tamo je bilo većinsko stanovništvo muslimansko. I prilikom rata sa Srbima, svi smo pobjegli ovamo. Da, na ovu stranu, to je zapadna strana, desna obala Neretve. Kad su se zavadili muslimani i Hrvati, zavadili se muslimani i Hrvati, svo muslimansko stanovništvo, neko protjerano, neko voljom, neko nevoljom, vratili su se na istočnu stranu. I ja sam se vratila u svoj stan.
koji su mi dali i pakete koje su davali građani grada Mostara koji su živjeli na zapadnoj strani, a slali smo ih u istočni dio grada, slali svojim prijateljima, rodbini, pojma nema koga, kako koga. Ja sam preko Starog mosta prešao, može biti jedan od posljednjih ljudi preko Starog mosta da je prešao. U jeku, znači 30. maja 1994. godine. Kad su vidjeli da me ne mogu zaustaviti niti mišići, niti jer sam imao jaku volju da pomognem ljudima i da ih izvodim, podvesli su mi auto, bombu u auto. I razjelo mi auto i oštilo oko na auto. Prvo sam pomislio, gledaj, da sam bio u autu, ja bi poginuo. Znate.
I prošlo je jedno vrijeme, nema niti ko dolazi odande, niti ko ide ni tamo ni ovam. I jedan dan kad sam izišla u dvorište, Zoran! Šok sam doživjela, prijatan šok, ali mislim to je kao da se Bog pojavi. Ne znam, eto, čini mi se da ne bi nikog na svijetu drugog poželjela da mi se pojavi pred očima nego Zorana. Ide Zoran, imao je zavijeno u papiru, pola kruha, ja se ukočila. Tad kad se Zoran pojavio, vratila mi se svaka nada. Ako je on mogao proći, i rat će proći.
Kako su počeli kupiti po zgradama, onda su jedan dan došli po noći. Sigurno bilo je silovanja i svega. Bio policijski sat, on izveo me iz zgrade, najstrašnije je bilo izaći iz zgrade. Sigurno svakom onom koju ne volji, bez obzira koje je muško, žensko, koje je nacionalnosti, zaista jedan čovjek od kojih se treba puno stvari naučiti o humanosti.
Idemo na Heredrom gdje su 1993. godine bili zatvoren veliki broj ljudi. U tom logoru su bili muslimani zatvorenici. To je 1993. godine kad oni su tu bili oko 10 mjeseci, 10-11 mjeseci su bili zatvoreni ljudi. Uspjevao sam doći do njih, donijeti pisma, donijeti sitne poklone, čokolada, cigarete. Kad ovo gledam, posjeća me na najteže trenutke koje je naš grad doživio. To je 1992. kad su Srbi odvođeni, 1993. kad su muslimani odvođeni. To je nešto što naš grad nije zaslužio da se to u njemu desi i da Mostar postane poznat i po tome da su u njemu bili ovakvi logori. Se borimo za jedinstvenu Bosnu i Hercegovinu. Ja sam se borio godinama, vjerujte da ja nisam nacionalna manjina, ja sebe ne osjećam kao nacionalna manjina, ja sebe jednostavno osjećam kao Hercegovac jevrijske vjeroispovijesti. Ja jedem istu hranu kao što jedu svi ljudi ovdje, isto se oblačimo, isto se nosimo, isto se školujemo, razumijete, družimo, idemo na kulturne manifestacije. žalosna je stvar da mi ne možemo ići naprijed. Bez istine, a bez istine nema ni pomirenja. Toga da bi djeca znala šta se dešavalo u ovome našem gradu. Pođite sa mnom da vidite ono čega se ljudi žele da se ne sjećaju, a treba da se sjećaju. Isto kao što ne smijemo zaboraviti da su svi mostovi u Mostaru srušeni. Ja sam takav čovjek koji kad vidi neku nepravdu želi da pomogne čovjeku da tu nepravdu prevaziđe i da se daleko bolje osjeća. Znači, običan čovjek koji je spreman svakome da pomogne, kome može da pomogne.
So we have watched the story of Zoran Mandelbaum, just an anecdote about him, who was called by people who loved and respected him the Oscar Schindler of Bosnia. He was truly a righteous man. I think his story is really moving. So, Dr. Karsic, over to you to talk about what happened in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you, Tanya. Thanks to the organizers. Just to give a historical context to the Bosnian genocide, because later on Hassan, my friend Hassan will tell you more about the memorial center itself. So the Bosnian genocide was the mass murder of Bosniaks, Bosnian Muslims, during the Bosnian War from 1992 to 1995. The Srebrenica genocide, which occurred in July 1995, was just the peak of the genocide which started in 1992. It was the final punch. Often many foreign scholars and dignitaries pose the question of how this was possible. You know, how was it possible for a genocide to occur in the middle of Europe in the 1990s? And it is commonly supposed that the reason for such evil crimes to be committed is unknown. However, I would like to use this opportunity to make two main points to emphasize them here, and which these 2 points are usually very neglected by foreign dignitaries and by scholars. Firstly, this was not an ad hoc project, coordinated by some local madman in Bosnia. It wasn't only committed and coordinated by Ratko Mladic and Radovan Karadzic, the masterminds, two main people of the Bosnian Serb entities. This was a government policy which was mastermind, financed, and supported by Belgrade. This so-called Serb Republic, Republika Srpska, which started its state-building process in 1991, so prior to the fall of Yugoslavia, it started by creating their own parallel institutions, their own assemblies and autonomous regions. In January 1991, so almost 3 months before the war officially started, the Serb Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina was formally declared. They had their own constitution, their own official gazette, they had their own set of rules and so on. On May 12th, 1992, several days after a failed coup and a failed attack on Sarajevo on the 2nd of May, so almost 10 days afterwards, the Bosnian Serb Assembly proclaimed its 6 strategic goals. This was a list of 6 objectives which the Bosnian Serbs want, including territorial gains, which need to be established and incorporated into the new Serb state. This was a sort of 1C conference of the Bosnian genocide. Although the primary aim of the war was to gain territory, the majority of the desired territory was populated by Bosnian Muslims. Thus, the Bosnian Muslims needed to be cleaned up, or as the Serbian military used the term očistiti, which basically means to clean up. And this officially started in April 1992. The Bosnian Muslims could have been removed from these territories without mass atrocities. There was hardly any significant resistance in most of these towns in eastern Bosnia and in northwestern Bosnia. However, based on the systematic abuse, humiliation, rape, torture, and murder, it is clear that the aim was not only to physically remove, but also to destroy the core of the Bosniak Muslim societies on a very micro level. This cleansing process was conducted on a municipality level, and in the majority of the cases, the perpetrators knew their victims. The rapists knew who they were raping, the murderers knew who they were killing. This was a very personalized crime. Through a system of concentration camps, this strategy of murder, humiliation, rape, and torture is something which I call collective traumatization. The second point is that Bosnian Muslims were dehumanized solely on their Muslim heritage. Even those who did not consider themselves Muslims or religious were targeted. The perpetrators, rather than the victims, decided which identity you belong to. And this was very well defined by Michael Sells in his book, The Bridge Betrayed. Bosnian Muslims were considered to be traitors, betrayers of the faith of Serb Orthodox Christianity, people who converted to Islam during the Ottoman Empire, which came to Bosnia in the 16th century. And thus, for betraying their faith 500 years ago, these converted people, these Christ killers, needed to be punished later on. In one case, one of the high-ranking Bosnian Serb politicians and former professor of biology, Biljana Plavšić at the University of Sarajevo, she actually claimed that Bosnian Muslims had a deformed genetics because our ancestors converted to Islam 500 years ago. There's a very thin line between Islamophobia and dehumanization. This ideology was a driving force behind the genocidal massacres which were committed by the Bosnian Serb army and police. However, this policy of Christ killers and race betrayers and traitors was limited to Bosnian Muslims and to Albanians in this area. So Serbia still had very good connections, actually, that time. Yugoslavia had very good connections with states such as, with Saddam Hussein in Iraq, with Gaddafi in Libya, and so on and so forth. So this anti-Muslim sentiment was directed only against the Slavic Muslims in the region. The core of the Bosnian Muslim family during the Bosnian genocide was destroyed. Women and girls were raped and sexually abused. Men were tortured, humiliated, and killed. But the perpetrators did everything necessary to kick the Bosnian Muslim population out of the country, and they were very highly successful of it. The population was expelled, mosques were blown up to the skies, and the land was converted into parks and parking lots. Books and manuscripts were burnt, and all traces of Bosnian Muslim presence on this territory was erased. Finally, unlike other genocides, which usually end in a military defeat of the perpetrators, in the Bosnian genocide, this was not the case. According to the Dayton Peace Agreement, the main institutions and agencies which spearheaded the genocidal campaign, for example, the Bosnian Serb Army and Police, became a constitutional and legal norm, which is today known as the Bosnian Serb Republic or Republika Srpska. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Karsic, very much. Very sobering to hear it again and hear about the extensive, calculated attacks on innocent human beings. Now it's my honor to ask Hassan Hassanovic to join this conversation. Hassan is the curator at the Srebrenica Memorial in Potočari, and he is also a survivor of the Srebrenica genocide. Hassan.
So Srebrenica was proclaimed as safe UN area in April 1993, which made people to think that they were safe and protected by the United Nations. In July 1995, the Bosnian Serb army launched an offensive against Srebrenica safe area, while the United Nations and the rest of the international community didn't do anything to stop the ongoing genocide. Srebrenica was occupied on July 11, 1995. The commander of the Bosnian Serb army, Ratko Mladic, strolled through Srebrenica. In a statement recorded on a film by a Serb journalist, said, "We give this town to Serb people. The time has come to take revenge on the Turks." So women and children ran to the UN base in Potočari outside of Srebrenica. Only 6,000 were allowed by the Dutch battalion of the United Nations to enter inside of their base, while over 20,000 were forced to stay outside of the UN base without any protection. On 12th and 13th July, refugees outside of the UN base were forced to leave. Women and children were deported to Kladan near Tuzla, while around 2,000 men and boys were separated in full view of the Dutch UN soldiers. All these men and boys were taken to detention centers and systematically killed. Around 6,000 refugees inside of the Dutch UN base were expelled by the Dutch battalion and handed over into the hands of the Bosnian Serb army and the police forces. Women and children were deported, while hundreds of men and boys were separated in full view of Dutch UN soldiers and later were killed. Over 12,000 men and boys didn't dare to come to the Dutch UN base. They went the other way, they took the other way through the woods, like me. This track is known as the Death March. Over 2/3 were captured, taken to detention centers, and were systematically murdered by the Bosnian Serb army and the police forces. Victims were buried in mass graves in a very organized fashion and reburied again in a secondary and tertiary mass graves. All of this is done to conceal the genocide. After the war, victims were found in mass graves and identified by the DNA, by the ICMP, the International Commission on the Missing Persons. All these efforts were possible due to the support of the United States and the Hague Tribunal. Srebrenica-Potočari Memorial Center was established in 2000 by the international community in Bosnia and Herzegovina. First burials happened in 2003 in September. That year, Srebrenica-Potočari Memorial Center was inaugurated by the ex-US President Bill Clinton. I survived Srebrenica genocide in July 1995. I was hunted in the Death March for 6 days and 6 nights. I will have to live with that trauma to the rest of my life. My father and my twin brother did not survive. I was looking for them for many years. Finally, I buried my father in 2003. So that day I will never forget. We were stopped in Bratunac, which is close to Potočari Srebrenica cemetery and memorial. We were stopped by the Republic of Srpska police because of an alleged traffic jam. We went off the buses and started walking. On the side of the street, there were many local Serbs who yelled at us. There were war criminals in that crowd. They were spitting on us. They were spitting on me. And I was going to bury my father in peace, and they wouldn't let me even to have that. I felt like no human. I buried my twin brother in 2005, 2 years later, which was one of the most difficult days in my life. I had to put his bones in the actual grave with my own hands. We were twins. We wore the same clothes. We did everything together. Only 4 years later, I decided to return to Srebrenica and work for Srebrenica Memorial Center in order to tell the story and educate the others about Srebrenica genocide. I never took it as a job. It's a mission for me. So it's been almost 11 years since I have been there. So I do also a lot of international speaking engagements. I published my own memoir. So for many years, Memorial Center was preoccupied with identifications and burials. Time has come now to turn a new page for the memorial to develop its resources, infrastructure, and connect globally. We have started many projects, and I will mention only two. Collection of personal belongings of victims and families, which is being archived according to our methodology. We have filmed 100 stories of people who were children in Srebrenica during the genocide. We did this project with cooperation with Sarajevo War Childhood Museum. So I led Srebrenica Memorial Center's team in this project, and these people have taught me so many things. This year is the 25th anniversary of Srebrenica genocide, which will be very challenging in this time of global pandemic. After 25 years since the genocide, we still face denial, which persists in both Republic of Srpska and Serbia, and also among sympathetic contingencies of the international community. Republika Srpska and Serbia haven't given up on the heritage of Slobodan Milošević and the Greater Serbia ideology. In both Republika Srpska and Serbia, pupils and students are taught distorted historical facts. Srebrenica genocide is being denied and downplayed, and war criminals are being celebrated as heroes. Convicted war criminals are published authors. Streets and dormitories are named after war criminals. We need the whole world to join our struggle against denial and historical revisionism. The world needs to show that genocide does not pay off and that justice always needs to prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. In witnessing your comments and sharing them with the world is a way that we, in fact, bring justice to the memories of all those who were murdered. And in witnessing, we will not forget who they are and what happened. And I want to applaud you and your courage and thank you for sharing such a poignant story of what happened to you and your family and what happened to Srebrenica and to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I would like to turn to Jasmina Jacoli, who's a radio journalist, and she will read the names of the victims in Srebrenica until we conclude our program. Jasmina.
Do you hear me? Fatima Muhic was born in 1995. Sead Alic, 1966. Islam Halilovic, 1974. Nesib Varnica, 1974. Šefik Husić, 1965. Aziz Hodžić, 1965. Mirzet Salihović, 1973. Aziz Osmić, 1975. Ajo Čehajić, 1953. Šahbaz Bečirović, 1946. Nermin Selimović, 1976. Seidin Husić, 1953. Muhamed Mekanić, 1964. Avdija Salihović, 1956. Omer Mujić, 1938. Nijazija Beganović, 1955. Senad Beganović, 1980. Dževad Mujić, 1974. Hasan Salihović, 1951. Hakija Mujić, 1934. Mehmedalija Delić, 1971. Samir Selimović, 1972. Salčin Hasanović, 1978. Medo Mehić, 1961. Sulejman Beganović, 1954. Hamed Čano, 1962. Osman Ahmetović, 1937. Yunus Duraković, 1954. Hašim Hasanović, 1956. Enis Omerović, 1978. Muhamed Džekić, 1947. Habib Malagić, 1961. Ređo Hrnić, 1939. Rasim Košpić, 1941. Mahmut Turković, 1945. Džemal Efendić, 1948. Idris Aljić, 1940. Himzo Huseinović, 1942. Hurem Begović, 1916. Behadija Begzadić, 1967. Refik Pejmanović, 1956. Ohran Ademović, 1954. Ibrahim Ujčinović, 1976. Musa Omerović, 1962. Asim Mustafić, 1965. Džemal Halilović, 1954. Jakub Osmanović, 1976. Džemir Halilović, 1977. Mujo Osmanović, 1978. Selman Osmanović, 1937. Almir Karić, 1975. Šefik Hasanović, 1970. Nedim Sulejmanović, 1976. Meho Kovačević, 1977. Mevludin Huseinović, 1964. Idris Hukić, 1927. Jusuf Jusić, 1941. Haris Palalić, 1974. Sead Dervišević, 1978. Avdo Begović, 1927. Ibrahim Hasanović, 1959. Aziz Ikanović, 1970. Hajrudin Avdić, 1969. Mehmet Barukčić, 1945. Hazim Avdić, 1972. Sefer Avdić, 1941. Ibrahim Malagić, 1954. Dahmo Delić, 1968. Safet Čivić, 1941. Hasan Malkić, 1943. Hasib Babić, 1961. Yunus Begić, 1946. Fetija Hamzabegović, 1933. Salko Salihović, 1971. Mevludin Halilović, 1957. Meho Begić, 1946. Ohran Bajramović, 1956. Sakib Nukić, 1971. Hajrudin Malkić, 1963. Hamdija Delić, 1951. Safet Yusufović, 1968. Suljo Delić, 1975. Yunus Osmanović, 1954. Nazim Mehmedović, 1958. Edhem Osmanović, 1951. Džanan Džekić, 1943. Ibro Gušter, 1974. Adil Smajić, 1937. Kemal Šiljković, 1959. Nelvir Osmanović, 1976. Nedžib Begović, 1967. Muvaz Orlović, 1978. Muhamed Omerović, 1965. Ismet Sejmenović, 1957. Aziz Smajić, 1963. Meho Smajić, 1920. Hasib Klinčević, 1969. Ahmed Alihodžić, 1941. Hasan Bećirović, 1958. Ramiz Ahmetović, 1960. Fadil Fejzić, 1966. Omer Salkić, 1970. Osman Husić, 1929. Refik Salkić, 1976. Asim Mujić, 1971. Hadil Huremović, 1975. Amir Mujić, 1975. Meho Bekrić, 1977. Sejdalija Halilović, 1975. Yusuf Nukić, 1933. Bakir Sinanović, 1971. Mehmed Hajdarović, 1969. Amir Dogić, 1967. Mujo Čomić, 1958. Sevdahet Salkić, 1975. Hasan Muratović, 1940. Kadrija Alić, 1978. Faruk Tursunović, 1961. Mehmed Mehanović, 1951. Alija Ejubović, 1955. Mirzet Salihović, 1971. Memiš Isaković, 1972. Ismet Muminović, 1956. Mevludin Malakić, 1966. Rešit Salihović, 1975. Memija Memić, 1973. Hamed Alić, 1941. Bekir Memić, 1968. Rešo Delić, 1940. Teufik Suljić, 1966. Suljo Rahmić, 1933. Yusuf Hodžić, 1977. Meho Hafizović, 1974. Adem Hukić, 1938. Safet Suljić, 1975. Omer Hurić, 1968. Sadet Suljić, 1979. Suljo Hasanović, 1953. Vahid Jusić, 1975. Sead Tabaković, 1974. Nusret Jakić, 1973. Ahmo Tabaković, 1939. Fadil Nukić, 1965. Adil Omerović, 1979. Izet Delić, 1971. Abdullah Sulejmanović, 1956. Ismet Bektić, 1928. Fahrudin Mujić, 1969. Ređo Husić, 1961. Zaim Husić, 1922. Osman Jašarević, 1947. Muhamed Pašić, 1976. Muamer Pašić, 1978. Avdo Ademović, 1955. Hasib Mustafić, 1960. Fadil Huremović, 1968. Sefad Hajdarević, 1963. Senad Čirkić, 1963. Azmir Čikarić, 1976. Ibro Ibišević, 1927. Zijad Mojkić, 1965. Safet Isaković, 1966. Resul Ređić, 1973. Ohran Suljić, 1943. Mehmed Nukić, 1966. Suad Mujić, 1967. Šaban Alić, 1950. Hasan Alić, 1974. Ramo Mujkić, 1944. Nusret Smajlović, 1973. Avdo Mujić, 1960. Alija Mustafić, 1930. Hazim Hasanović, 1978. Sead Mustafić, 1958. Sakib Gladović, 1968.
Thank you very much, Yasmina, for sharing some of the names of those who were murdered. May their memories be a blessing. Lastly, I would like to thank the organizers, the Together We Remember campaign. By remembering, we aspire to create a better humanity, that we will not commit such horrible atrocities against each other. I want to thank the Srebrenica Memorial Center at Potočari. I want to thank Hasanovich for sharing his story. I want to thank our colleague, Dr. Emir Suligic, the director of the Memorial Center. He too is a survivor, for their important work in a very challenging year, as you mentioned, Hassan. Because of the pandemic, it remains to be seen how we'll all be able to participate in this important anniversary. But we start here today, and we make a mark, a milepost, that we will continue to remember all those who perished, all those who survived, and all the injustice that has been done that must be righted. I want to thank our participants, Dr. Karsic, and your contribution as a genocide scholar at the University of Sarajevo, your important work also with respect to the Holocaust and what happened in Bosnia, for the recovering of the work and the man, Dervis Korkut. You are to be commended for your contributions, sir. And of course, I want to thank you, Yasmina, for reading those names. We will continue to read names. We will continue to remember the victims and their families. And I want to also commend the work of the Post-Conflict Research Center, that is doing very difficult and challenging work in the region. For example, as Hassan has said, genocide denial continues and is very active. Consequently, there's much work that has to be done to talk about the history, and what happened is still a very difficult task, as people know, in Bosnia, when genocide denial is active in Republika Srpska, in the Republic of Serbia. They are actively undermining the stories by their denial and about the truth. And so PCRC works to address and honor those who act in moral ways to protect others, as examples of how people can act bravely in the face of some of the most worst atrocities or the greatest danger to other human beings. So the work goes on, and by participating today with the Together We Remember campaign, Bosnia has been very active, particularly in the region, but this participation in a global virtual day of honoring all those who survived the Holocaust, who succumbed to the Holocaust and to genocide, the worst genocide since World War II. Bosnia does join the world as a very important partner and telling the stories that we will never let anyone forget. So I thank the organizers once again, and I commend everyone who was involved today in making this possible.
Tanya, thank you so much. Hikmet, Hassan, Yasmina, very special experience to hear your stories, to learn more about the context and the history, and really importantly, just to listen and to bear witness and provide space for those who may not have their proper burial space. For those few moments that we read names, our hearts, our souls, the space virtually that we're creating can become that space for those that we loved and those that we've lost. And we are very committed to collaborating further so that way we can make the idea of never again a reality once and importantly for all. So thank you for saying yes to joining us and being our partners.